Hi, welcome to Regenerative Revolution. This is our second session live with Jonathan Kabat and Lauren Bond, and they are working on Hotlum Eco-Regeneration Camp, which is on the slopes of Mount Shasta. And we are going to be talking today about their value proposition. And if we have time, we'll get to talking about their marketing and delivery. So just setting a little bit of context, we're live streaming on Twitch and recordings will be put up on YouTube. As you can see on the screen on the bottom left, there's bios of Jonathan and Lauren, as well as a brief project description and links to their sites. And on the right, there is my questions and notes. So this is like my workbook that I'm filling out for them. And then I'm going to transfer the information that I collect from this workbook into a business model canvas, which I'm showing on the screen right now, and filling this out for them. I will give it to them for them to edit and use as they want to for their organization in the future. That's kind of the gist of what we're here to do today. So let's do just a little check-in. How are you doing? Let's start with you, Jonathan.
I'm doing good. It's relatively smoky up here today. We have a fire in the adjacent county in Modoc, and we've been having thunder and lightning. So there's kind of a cloudy, smoky day, but it's nice and cool, and just noticing that it's fire season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. And Lauren, how are you doing?
My second job, for those of you that are just tuning in, I'm a canoe outfitter, and so today was first day of summer camp with 15 really lovely children ages 8 to 16. And yeah, I'm tired. I'm good. Swam in the river a lot and carried a lot of boats. So I'm good. I'm tired. I'm sitting at a park right now.
Okay.
So
yeah, great, awesome.
Just finished a half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm at home and I'm just raring to go. So let's get started. Okay, so we're talking about your value proposition. I'm going to be using some kind of businessy language. So just to define what we're talking about, value proposition, we're talking about the value that you're creating. What are you offering? And it's a little bit deeper than just like we're selling a toothbrush. It's like, well, what's the value of that toothbrush? Like, what does it mean to your customers? Why would someone buy that toothbrush over a different toothbrush? That kind of thing. That's the value you're creating. And then we're going to talk about customer segments, which, you're maybe serving different customers, or maybe even serving the same customers in different ways. So you kind of define these segments of how you're delivering things to different customers. So the first thing we wanted to do is to define those customer segments. What kind of people are what kind of things are we delivering to different groups of people?
Well, we work with people who are recognizing that we're all in transition, and that transition is personal and collective. And so, both of us have backgrounds in coaching and counseling and in transitional work like rites of passage. And so the people who come to us, I think, are looking for deep systemic change in order to facilitate humanity's survival on the planet and to regenerate our culture so that we can live in harmony with the rest of humanity and the rest of the biosphere. Those two go hand in hand.
So that's what your customers want, which is kind of my next question. I'm just talking about who are your customers? Are these children, adults, people who like the out of doors, stuff like that?
I'll answer. I think there's a few different segments that we serve. So one is people that are interested in restoring the land, like doing ecosystem restoration, learning about it, and then actually doing that work.
Okay. People want to learn and get hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. restoring land.
Yeah. So another segment is, which, really we haven't started guiding at Hotlum yet, but but we will be offering rites of passage and nature connection, ecotherapy kinds of trainings and workshops and programs and things. And so, so it generally, my thought is that at this point, it's mostly adults that have a sense of, they've probably camped before, but they don't have to be particularly experienced camping, but they have to be comfortable with the fact that that's what our accommodations are. And then another one of the segments would be people that are looking for land to facilitate, where they can facilitate workshops, trainings, rites of passage, experiences, etc. So we would like to be a host for people to come and offer their programs.
All right, great. So
yeah. I'll let Jonathan add if there's anything else.
Yeah, is there anything else? I mean, I think you guys probably would do some sort of kids programming at some point, right?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I'm currently in conversation with a Karuk elder who has done courses or camps. He calls them culture camps for indigenous youth. And we're in conversation about hosting his culture camp for indigenous youth. So that's the kind of program that we'd like to support, is working with young people who are trying to develop sense of resilience, a sense of their connection with their ancestry, a sense of how to live on the planet with like ancestral skills or wild tending, or just how to know what their purpose is. And so we definitely would like to work with intact groups that have leadership that want to bring youth here.
What about Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? Are you interested in working with them?
Well, if there was Boy Scouts, that would be one thing. Currently, I don't believe there is a Boy Scouts of America, but Lauren grew up in campfire, and her mother was a campfire leader, and her most precious times growing up was at a campfire camp that she might share with us at some point talking about. But it's one of the reasons why we're developing Hotlum, is because of this deep connection as children to the natural world.
Yeah, I was a Girl Scout, and my daughter's in the Boy Scouts, and they actually have been doing stuff here. They don't seem to care that much here in Oklahoma at this point, but maybe out in California they're a little bit more careful.
Yeah, there's and for me, I haven't been focusing on working with kids myself. Definitely hosting other organizations that are doing children's camps, like like our friend Franklin, the man that Jonathan was mentioning. That feels like a really good thing that we can do.
Yeah.
And we were today with youth on the river.
Yeah. What?
You were out today with the youth on the river, the first day of canoe camp.
I was, and that's in partnership with somebody that does that, that does summer camps.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that partnership is really important, and if anything, I mean, working with Scouts is just good because they have insurance, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so of these customer segments, like, what do you think they are currently paying attention to? Like, what are these people, what would they be looking for?
Well, I think a value in them is our relationship with the planet. And so maybe if it was youth, they would be looking at Richard Louve's work and his work with, nature deficit disorder and how to reconnect children to nature, or maybe John Young's work or rites of passage work like the School of Lost Borders. They would be interested in reconnecting with the land as a family, as, young people who want to reconnect and develop skills and an understanding about how to live in balance with nature. If they're adults, they may be looking at a dramatic transition, realizing that, you know, what they've been pursuing as a career is either not functioning anymore, it's not fulfilling, or it's actually destructive. And they want to contribute to a global movement of restoring the earth and restoring humanity's relationship with earth.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the things that I just noticed is Lauren held her thumb up. This is kind of a symbolic gesture, but it's a way of sharing consent. And one of the things that we try to practice is consensual agreements in decision making. So perhaps some of the people who would want to come to visit us would be looking to explore different ways of creating harmony and cohesive groups. And so we can work with groups in developing their skills around cohesion and how to, you know, be a good working group.
Yeah. I mean, that takes me to, you know, maybe people who are looking for like retreats for their business or group. Yeah, for like connection building or leadership, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. That's definitely one of the offerings of the River's Path. And it's certainly something that we intend to do here. And so, you know, we have different venues, but Hotlum is one of our primary emergent venues.
Right. Right. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, is like, okay, if they were like looking for a program, what kind of program are they looking for? So maybe they're looking for like a leadership or like a, you know, let's build relationships kind of a thing. You know, maybe they're looking for just a wilderness retreat.
One thing I would say is a purpose-driven organization. That if an organization has a purpose that's aligned with living in harmony with the rest of the living planet, then they would be a good fit for us.
Awesome. Yes. Yes.
I would also, you mentioned wilderness camp. And this is a wilderness camp. So we're not planning on having a retreat center with big fancy buildings, or, you know, it's really about, like, we're going to be camping in tents, and,
right,
you know, working the land, and really it's about connection to place. So we don't have walls separating us from the landscape. Just to be clear on the kind of retreats that we're doing.
Sure. Yeah, so there's kind of, I'm seeing like three kinds of programs. One is like the kind of leadership relational building kind of thing. The other is like wilderness, just getting outdoors and connecting with nature. And the other would be like educational programs like permaculture. You want to learn about a particular, like kind of in a scientific way, right?
I would say one of the main offerings that we're going to be doing sooner rather than later, it's about learning how to live in a fire ecology and learning techniques that are ancient, but with a slightly new twist on how to work in a fire ecology and to prevent catastrophic fire. So things like making biochar is one of the things that people are really intrigued with. And so we'll be doing workshops on biochar and cleaning land in a way, clearing land of fuel load in a way that is slow and deliberate. And so hopefully the plan is that that would increase the safety elements of it. So I would say a key interest for some people early on will be how to live in a fire ecology.
Learning to increase safety in a fire ecology. I mean, that's something that you could market to people who own land. Maybe somebody owns acres of forest and they want to learn how to manage it better. So they could come out and learn from you.
That's the plan. We're in the learning process ourselves right now. But as we, you know, we're both experienced facilitators and teachers. So as we learn, our intention is to share what we learn and also bring in experts in some of these things as we're developing our expertise.
Awesome.
Yeah, professional foresters and, you know,
biochar
social
experts.
forestry, fire
social forestry, biochar experts.
Yeah. Totally, totally. And then there's the people who are looking for a location to facilitate their own programs. I mean, obviously, they are looking for outdoor areas. Like, what else might they be looking for that you have to offer?
I think researchers who are interested in doing a research project where they could, develop a long-term study. And so that could be another thing we could host. And we're also really interested in the humanities and art. And so we're leading a canoe trip with Craig Childs, which is a writing workshop on the Green River this fall.
Mm-hmm.
So we're imagining writing workshops, art workshops, poetry, potentially some kind of, workshop around working with stone, like dry stone masonry. There's so many options. And so I think kind of overarching is just creative expression in relationship to nature.
Mm-hmm.
As well as like nature connection workshops, ancestral skills and rites of passage, and that sort of transformation and like skill building in wilderness survival, although we call it ancestral skills.
Sure. Yeah, you said something in there about like long-term research. I think something you have to offer that might be different than other retreat areas is that you have that possibility of having a long-term relationship with your programmers or researchers or whatnot, versus just like, oh yeah, you can just come rent it for a week and then that's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the last group was the youth. Now I didn't catch that first name you said. You said John Young. What was that other? It sounded like Richard Liu or something.
Oh, Richard Liu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the one that wrote. Yeah, he wrote. It's Louv. That's how you spell it.
Oh, okay.
He wrote the book Last Child in the Woods, and which was a pretty groundbreaking book about how just exploring how when kids are separated from nature and just not having like time to just play in nature, it creates a lot of other problems in their lives. So he coined the term nature deficit disorder, which is pretty commonly used within the environmental education world at this point.
Okay, cool. And I mean, and that's just simple, those kind of people are probably looking for campsites and kids programs. Is there anything else you'd add to that?
Well, I think there's always this idea of eco-spirituality. And there are groups that may want to have ceremony. There's a revival movement in the United States called Wilderness Torah. There are other spiritual groups that may be, pagan ancestry or some kind of other reclaiming of their own ancestral ritual that something in a natural setting.
Yeah.
And so that would be something we would be very interested in hosting.
Right. And again, then the long-term relationship becomes important. If you're going to set up a ceremonial space, then you might want that honored for a long term, to not have it turned into something else and you'll have to come back and set it back up again. And, like you want it like kept sacred, right? Yeah, totally. Okay. So moving on to the next thing, we're looking at the pains that these people are trying to alleviate and the desires that you want to fulfill for them. So they want deep systemic change. So that's maybe a desire. What else can we list?
Well, there's something that's talked about in transpersonal psychology that's referred to as the fundamental split. It's written about in many ancient texts where humans left the garden or they left their sense of being part of nature and became separated through language, through cultivation, through civilization. And so I think the loneliness that humans often feel that's inherent in this kind of, what I would say, an epigenetic expression of human sensibilities is a suffering that we're all enduring. And I think we long for connection. We long to be feeling a part of the greater whole of this whole planet.
Yeah, that feels really important to me. And one of the things that one of our friends that's been staying at Hotlum, has said that that's been one of the things that he's really loved about being there, is just being able to slow down and start to like notice and feel, like notice what's there. Like, right. I heard a wren tit calling while Jonathan was speaking. Being able to like notice what's around. And so like our nervous system changes, it calms down in a way that we don't get when we're in a city and with just constant stimulation.
Overstimulation.
Yeah, it's a different kind of stimulation.
Yeah.
And it actually enlivens a little bit too. I'm like kind of moving the flies away from my ears a little bit. And, it's warm and a little bit muggy. And sometimes it's a little brisk and cold. And so it's simultaneously soothing and calming and enlivening and building vitality. It's a wonderful paradox of being out in nature. And we all experience that. When we go to the beach, or when we go up into the mountains or go to the desert, we all experience that. And this is just one place to experience that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I have the pains are a separation from nature or nature deficit disorder. Loneliness, disconnection, maybe boredom could be lumped in with that, and overstimulation. And then for desires, I've got deep systemic change, to feel enlivened.
Connection. Connection's a really important word.
Yeah, I feel like there's more we can add to that, like connection in what way? Like,
so there's, go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm trained as a psychotherapist, and so I think a lot about neurological connections or family connections, relationship connections. And so even on a physiological level, we're needing to reconnect our nervous system in a way that we're aware of our relationship, the way that we're embedded in a larger system. And so for me, connection is sometimes just neurological, but it has profound effects.
Yeah, I think there's, and part of it is connection to the land, connection to nature. But then also what happens with that is we also gain a deeper connection to ourselves and to what matters with us, and also a deeper connection to our senses and, what we're noticing, what we're feeling, what we're seeing. And that can really, that can even shift our sense of purpose in our lives. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's an emotional connection to one another as we do projects together, a connection with the world around us. So it opens our hearts emotionally, and we feel more part of it with a greater community.
Okay, cool. All right. So, yeah, deep systemic change, and then deep connection, lasting relationships, and a connection with community. I have for kind of like the social aspect, and then there's a relationship with nature, which might be connected directly to a sense of purpose and spiritual connection. Okay, cool. So the next question is, how do you want your customers to feel?
Inspired.
We said enlivened, so enlivened, inspired.
Also calm, just like really relaxed. Lessened anxiety, sense of joy.
Okay.
Courageous.
Great. All right. Is there a way that you can state this in like a promise that you're making to them? If you join us, we're going to do this. Like a promise of what you're going to deliver in an emotional sense.
You want to take a stab at that, Jonathan?
I'm pondering.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of an awkward question.
A little meme that goes around that, says things like, if you go into the forest and unplug, you'll find a better connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something that we're not actually making this promise. This is the promise of regenerating humanity's relationship with Earth, that we will remember our place. We'll find our ecological niche. So I think that that's more like we're co-conspirators, or we're co-therapists with nature. And so when we connect with nature, we connect more deeply with ourselves, because we are. And so I don't know how to phrase that in one little sentence, but I would say that coming to Hotlum will inspire awe and connect. I think awe is a really important word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right now I'm sitting by this pond, and this little girl who's probably 3 just was fishing with her dad, and just caught a fish. And she's staring at this fish as her dad releases it, and she just said, "Bye, fishy." But that kind of connection, that kind of like, whoa,
yeah,
just like that happens all the time at Hotlum.
Right. Yeah, I don't think this doesn't have to be about you guys, it's about the magic of that place, maybe. Like what are you certain about that Hotlum can deliver? And yeah, I think awe and connection, that might be good to go with. Okay, cool. Okay, so now what products are you planning to sell in the next year? What are you going to actually get money for in the next year?
So as far as, go ahead, John.
We call them offerings.
Yes. Offerings.
So there's a few different parts to this. We do have products, like things that we'd like to maybe be able to sell some biochar, and that we create on the property, and then also making things out of some of the manzanita branches, because they're really amazing. So that's those are some of the products as far as like items to sell. But Jonathan, I'll let you talk about the different
services.
Yeah, we've got lots of services. Jonathan, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I'm really inspired about is that people ask us, are we planting trees, or how are we getting our trees? And the reality is we have a lot of trees that are self-starters, they're volunteers, but they need to be helped along. And so we need to clear the brush around them, and we need to make sure that they can thrive, that they're not bent over by other things. And so I'm interested in having an adopt a tree program where people could actually, donate a few dollars a month, and then they could come and visit their tree, and they could be contributing even if they can't come to visit. I think, offering workshops, especially ecosystem restoration camps, is really important for us. And unfortunately, in this time of COVID, we had to cancel our ecosystem restoration camp. And we're trying to figure out the best way to provide services. So, you know, we are still in this kind of transition phase of developing the camp and the campground. So we're not officially an open campground, but you know, eventually we'll want to be offering camping and workshops. And sometimes people can camp without attending a workshop, and other times the whole 120 acres would be reserved, you know, just for the group that's attending the workshop. And a lot of those workshops would be hands-on. So it could be natural building to learn timber framing, or it could be stone masonry, or it could be permaculture design or agroforestry, or, you know, who knows what different instructors would like to host here.
Yeah.
And then I have a fantasy about offering acoustic music festivals. So I think that would be really fun. We want to have a lot of fun and a lot of culture. And so, you know, those kind of short offerings. And then, you know, potentially we could offer groups the ability to come back like on a quarterly basis and experience different seasons here.
Yeah.
So short and long-term events.
Sure. Well, I mean, the question is specifically in the next year. So taking into consideration COVID-19, I mean, you guys do need to get something going out there. So what could you do? I mean, maybe family camping, maybe smaller events. Like what do you think you could actually offer this year?
So we would definitely in the next year, we'd like to have an ecosystem restoration camp.
Okay.
Hopefully one in the fall, if we can pull that off, and then one in the spring to do work on the land. And then we would have different, you know, Jonathan made a lot of connections for this last one that we had to cancel in April, of different experts in, you know, community architecture and Korean natural farming and lots of other things. So, you know, so those folks are all still very excited about coming. We just need to have, you know, have some clarity as far as what we're able to do during these times. But that feels like something definitely in the next year. And then I think Jonathan and I will guide some, you know, guide some nature connection workshops there in the next year for sure. And then the biochar is definitely something that we're going to be working on.
Okay. I mean, would you be interested in just like renting out your campsites to family campers? Because it seems like something you could do soon.
We're not ready for that yet because we need to have be an organized campsite, and to be an organized campsite, we need to have a well, as well as several other infrastructure pieces. So we're not ready to just rent out the campsite, you know, for that. But it is in the works. I just don't know if that's going to happen in the next year.
Okay. Yeah. So the things you're talking about, these would be more daytime activities without camping then?
We're still trying to figure out in COVID, you know, what is possible, and the rules keep changing. And so this is a little bit difficult to answer, and certainly not anything that, you know, we can answer, you know, as like a definitive public statement. You know, what's allowed is very broadly dispersed camping, and we can provide that because none of our campgrounds are close together. And, you know, it boils down to, in many ways, you know, how do we, you know, provide, you know, other essential services. Special events are a little bit easier for us than ongoing camping. But we are, you know, still looking for researchers and people who want to help with the restoration efforts in this area, because it has been clear cut, as we mentioned on the previous call, and that there are Forest Service plantations near us that are not regenerating. And so, you know, looking at, you know, how does this ecosystem best recover from 100 and plus years of clear cutting.
Yeah, could you make money? Would you make any money on that though? allowing researchers out there?
It may be that we are able to pull in some interested parties who are willing to make donations in service of some research projects. And so we're looking at that. Yeah, we're also looking at grants.
Yeah, we've been approved for one grant so far, and we're in conversation with some other some foundations and government agencies for other grants. So we are really hoping to have some income from those to start for to be able to start implementing some of the pieces that we need to have in place to expand into our own financially stable offerings.
But this is why we're interested in a social purpose corporation. In California, this idea of a corporation that's not just simply beholden to the bottom line of financial return for their shareholders, but that we have other explicit purposes that we're reporting on and that are providing value to our investors.
Is that something different? Because I know about benefit corporations. Is there a specific one in California that's called social benefit? Or
yeah.
What'd you say?
Yes, it
yes.
used to be called
Social
a flexible benefit corporation.
Social purpose, yeah.
It used to be called a flexible benefit corporation, and it's currently called a social benefit corporation. And within the structure of that corporation, we are allowed to do projects that are inherently valuable, but may not provide a financial return.
Sure.
And people still want to invest in that kind of work because it provides ecological or social or even governance benefits for the employees of the corporation.
Totally.
And then I guess the other piece of that is that, we can then provide events, for, say, disadvantaged youth or those kind of things. And it's not always just about bottom line for Lauren and I. We have other sources of income. So it's been a rough go in the sense that we got started right as COVID got started.
Yeah.
And I think it's both the best time for us to start an organization like this and one of the most challenging times. I don't think there's a better time to do a regenerative project. And I want all your listeners out there to hear this, that your business model is the most important business model there is right now. To do dynamic regeneration in our economic system now. This is the year 2020. Get started.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go forward, and it's going to be a creative process.
Yeah. I mean, it's time for planning. Sit down. Get out the.
So could we have an Etsy website, and we're selling door handles and Etsy? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. Yeah, we could have like a little website where we sell beautiful things made out of manzanita.
Sure.
Kind of this social forestry cottage.
If you're not ready to have a lot of camping out there, then maybe you should focus on stuff like that. Maybe the Adopt a Tree program. I mean, maybe that could go viral. Maybe you could get a lot of people to sign up for that, and then you'd have money to, you could make that like a fundraiser thing. And then you could get that well, right?
Maybe you can help us with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to get you guys set up with some sort of fundraising thing, because, the next time I send out a bunch of posts to advertise this, I want to be focusing on the clients and what they're doing, and I want to make sure I'm including links to where people can support you, focusing on that. So yeah, I want to get that going quickly, and in the next couple of sessions we're gonna work on this. But this question right here is it. Like, what is it that you're actually going to be asking for money for right now? What's the first thing you're going to focus on? Is there one or two of these that you can say, okay, maybe you want to do, some sort of event this year, but you can't do it next week. What can you do next week?
So as far as things that we're asking money for, a well is very high up on the list. Yeah, and then some of the other things that we're exploring some finances for is to have a little bit more of a functional kitchen so we can host people more effectively. So we've got a few different ideas as far as what that might look like. And then and then just some of the restoration work, which the government funding that we've applied for, government grants are for that. Hopefully those will come in the next year, sooner rather than later. But yeah, Jonathan may have some more.
Jonathan, you still there? I don't see your video.
Yeah, I'm still
Okay.
here.
Okay, that's cool.
I have somebody coming from ecosystem restoration camps, and I have to tell them that I'm still on this call.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I mean, I see a possibility for you guys to do some sort of a fundraising campaign, and maybe the Adopt a Tree is part of it. So maybe that's like the low cost offering. If you can, do $3 or whatever, it's like that's the easy low hanging fruit to get people to say yes. And then, hey, if you want to donate a few more dollars, it'll go to us building a well and a kitchen and doing more restoration work. Does that sound like something you'd want to put together soon?
Yeah. We're also involved with ecosystem restoration camps, which is an international movement. And so I want to encourage every listener to become a member of ecosystem restoration camps, even if that's just, $1 a month or $5 a month. You're supporting an international movement, and there are camps around the world in places like Somalia that are far more challenging economically than we are here in Northern California, even though it's a pretty depressed area here in Northern California. And I think we would also like to start a Patreon page where people can kind of follow us and what we're doing, and also be invited to visit with us and receive a tour of Hotlum.
Yeah.
And to get special benefits of being a patron of Hotlum as a way of restoring this very important mountain and the water systems that feed the Klamath River. We're in the headwaters of the Klamath River.
Well, this it could be on Patreon. So your campaign, crowdfunding campaign, like we don't have to think of it that way. We can just think of your Patreon page. There could be Adopt a Tree, could be the lowest cost offering on there, and then the next one up, and it's a recurring payment. So every month they would be paying a couple of dollars, and then the next one up would be like a $8 offering, and the next one up would be a $20 offering, and one of those could include once a year come out and stay here.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk a lot about here, especially with John Liu, is how do we have an economy that's not based on fiat currency and debt, but one that is based on the environmental and ecological functioning that individuals are providing and supporting. So if we value life on planet Earth and we value ecological functioning, then we need to put our money where our mouth is and develop an economic system where we're supporting individuals who are growing food, who are purifying water, who are keeping the air clean, who are restoring forests, who are basically, reinvigorating the cities to be healthier places to live for all beings. And so maybe that's part of this whole project, an international movement to shift the global economy toward a regenerative economy.
So would that be through asking patrons to pay to support people doing that work, or would that be through asking people to do work trade instead of paying money?
I think it's both.
Yeah, I would say all of the above. So we have to really think outside the box. There have been times in this country where we had federal funding to pay for things. Even in the recent past, we had the California Conservation Corps. And so I believe that we need to have federal and local funding to support young people in learning how to regenerate forests, to sequester carbon, to clean water systems, and that the future is in providing ecological services. And so perhaps we have a educational model here where young people can come for a gap year and study forestry, social forestry. And we can bring in experts and they can have hands-on experience in the national forest. And they can work with water restoration experts, and they can work with people who understand how to address the illnesses that the trees are experiencing. They can address, fire issues, and then they can take that skills onward and do it on private lands, but start with the public lands as best we can and get funding to do that. And so this is just one potential model of shifting our economy toward regenerative economy.
And just to reiterate, we are surrounded by national forest. So our hope is that what we're doing as far as restoration at Hotlum is something that can be a model for, for the surrounding national forest and then beyond. That's definitely a big part of our intention.
Yeah, I mean, I can see people wanting to support that by kind of sponsoring, being patrons of your restoration work, and I think the more transparent you can be about, okay, we are looking for an intern, we're looking for somebody to come out here and do this work, and then this money is going to go to them, and to show people exactly what their money is going towards. And that's what a Patreon page is great for, because you can keep people updated. You can be posting on it like social media, just like taking pictures all the time, and your patrons get to really keep up with what it is that you're doing and feel like they're a part of it. You know what I mean?
That's part of the legal requirements for a social benefit corporation. It's a for-profit corporation that has transparent reporting. And so if we have an intern here who is both studying and doing research, and they're receiving funds, that we would be reporting on that. And so our investors would not only see that we're growing healthy trees and restoring the aquifer and helping the whole hydrological system, but we're simultaneously educating a young person to go off and do that in the world for the rest of their career life. What could be more important at this time? So then people would want to invest in an organization, a corporation, that would be providing those kind of functions.
And one other thing that I want to make sure that we're mentioning with this as well is, having some financial support for us to be able to do this work is important. We do have the River's Path, my canoe outfitter, but just spreading ourselves out so thin makes it so, and especially for me, I'm in Colorado right now because I've got to make money for us. So I think that if we could actually use this Patreon to be able to support us a little bit, then we can really focus on the work that we're trying to do there at Hotlum.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can provide guiding services also. I'm a trained ecotherapist, and I do private work with individuals. Lauren is a transformational coach. She's been trained in coaching and has a master's degree in outdoor environmental leadership. So we have a lot of things that we can offer people if they want to come and learn, or they want to come and do a process that's transformational. This is an offering that we can provide as individuals. What we'd like to invite is some local guides who have their wilderness first responder and have specific skill sets where they would like to work under our commercial use permit. So we have an agreement with the National Forest Service, and we are licensed, or we're basically have the opportunity to provide commercial services in the Shasta Trinity National Forest in an area where nobody else guides. We're the only ones who guide in this part of the wilderness. And so it's a really unique opportunity for someone who wanted to do, say, Shinrin-yoku, or some kind of healing practices, or wanted to do nature connection work or hikes or ecotherapy, if they wanted to approach us, we have a business model in which we can provide those services. So, that's kind of a people service. And a lot of people come to Mount Shasta for spiritual renewal, for health and education reasons. What a beautiful place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, these are different offerings offered to different customer segments here. One is what you two have to offer, your, offerings, your guiding, your, whatever programming you want to offer yourselves. And then the other thing is to advertise to other guides that they would pay you some fee to come out and do their own guiding, right?
Yeah, we have that model already in place,
right.
Specifically on the Green River and on the St. Vrain River in Colorado and the Green River in Utah. And they're slightly different. We have employees on the St. Vrain River where they're hired as a guide and they get paid for guiding half-day and one-day canoe trips. But then we partner with very experienced facilitators. They could be yoga instructors, they could be nature connection, bird language, photographers, writers, and they lead workshops that are a 9-day trip on the Green River. So we can do the same thing here with backpacking or with camping on the land here and taking day excursions. We're happy to partner with other facilitators, but we also have the possibility of hiring a guide who wants to be an employee.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, my question here is, we've got lots of ideas. What do you really want to focus on first?
I'd like to take a stab at that. We do have a lot of ideas, Jacki.
Yeah,
absolutely right. The things that I feel really called to focus on in the short term is creating our forest management plan, which CAL FIRE is providing some funding for that. We're not sure like the specifics on that yet, but I think restoration work is early on one of the things that we want to do, because we need to keep this place safe for for people to be here. And then just the basic infrastructure that will also allow for that safe stay, like a well.
Right. And so is it the fundraising, like the fundraising from the public that you're wanting to focus on? Because you already have some grants, or are you wanting to put more energy into getting more grants?
Both. I think that basically, I mean, I don't care where the funding comes from, Jacki, but right now I think that's one of the early on things that we need.
Yeah.
Before we can have an organized campground, we have to have other things in place. So before we can do restoration work, we have to have, the forest management plan in place. So I think that's part of it. And then another part is, I think that we could, I would really like to focus on doing an ecosystem restoration camp. Hopefully this fall, but definitely this spring, next spring as well. And then doing some programs for, that we would guide.
Okay, your own programs. I'm trying to highlight the ones that are like the first focus.
Right.
Yeah.
So the easiest thing for us to do is exactly what Lauren's doing right now, which is guiding. We are professional guides, and so we can be guiding right now on Mount Shasta. And we don't need any infrastructure. We don't need any additional insurance. We don't need any additional, expenses except for really promotion. And we just need to let people know that we're ready to start guiding on Mount Shasta. And that could generate a small amount of income to keep us afloat while we work on these more long-term plans. Like a forest management plan is a multi-year project. Some of them, I have a friend who has a 500-year long forest management plan. So if we're looking at like what is an immediate return, I would say the Patreon project and getting patrons. And the second is for us to cover some of our expenses by getting the word out that we're leading, trips into the national forest, which we certainly can do right now. We could do one this weekend if, somebody called us up.
Yeah. Well, I could see.
And
go ahead.
So one of the pieces with that, from my experience with, guiding over the last decade, is the marketing, which we would need your help with. Is if we pursue that, because yes, absolutely, if we can get a group of people to come, it would be amazing to guide some nature connection or rite of passage for something in the national forest.
Yeah.
But we need, like, we don't have the community like ready to sign up yet, so that sometimes takes time. Maybe that's something you could help us with.
Sure. Yeah, I was just thinking that, I think we can kind of kill many birds with one stone here with a, promoting some Patreon fundraising thing, and at the same time advertising your offerings, because, either you could have a high dollar Patreon, thing that includes like one trip a year, or you could offer discounts, so your pricing of your packages can be a little bit over what you need to make, and then you can offer a discount for the people who are members of your Patreon, and just put that out there, put that, and link to my show too, and we'll both put it out there, and having one thing to focus on promoting is easier than having 10 things to focus on.
Yeah, Lauren's been running a successful transformational canoe company for a decade now, and our trips have been selling out on the Green River this year. And, unfortunately, we've had to postpone them. And so we're doing them in the fall. And there's one trip with Mom Muse, which is a children's camp with family members. So a family camp, and it's a sing-along camp. And so, we could do a Patreon page where at a certain level of, Patreon, we could have a special canoe trip, just for our Patreon subscribers, which is pretty awesome. And we could do the same thing with a special camp out here or a special backpacking trip here. There's so many things that we can provide to make people feel like they're connected to a community. So I want to come back to this idea of connection. And I think Patreon is a beautiful way to support people feeling that they're part of something. And I want people to feel like they're a part of this collaborative we call Hotlum.
So that I love all of that. And I come back to, so just to be clear, the trips that are selling out are the ones where we've partnered with a well-known nature writer and a well-known musician. Those are the ones that are selling out. I'm not at the level that I'm selling out my own trips yet.
Sure.
So I would love to get there someday, but I'm not there yet.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully you've been capturing all of your lists, because if they went on a trip with you 3 years ago, they might be about ready to do another one.
Of course.
Yeah. So
it's been hard it's been hard to inspire people to travel during COVID. And so, I really believe that, as we move through this particular pandemic and people get used to learning how to do what they love to do again, that, people will be more willing to go on adventures. And so I think a lot of the slowdown this year really is only because of COVID. And we're developing strategies in conjunction with other river guides and with the state of Utah to do things safely. So I just want to reiterate that we know how to do this. We just have to get on and get doing it again.
Yeah, it might come back even stronger because, people want to get out and do something. And it's a lot safer to do a canoe trip with a few people than to go to a concert with 100,000 people, like a huge concert, like those things aren't going to be happening for a long time, the sporting events kind of stuff. But what people can get out and do is, outdoors things. I mean, I think that, being out in the sunlight, that kills the virus. And so, it's definitely less dangerous to do something like that. So you might find even more interest in this, especially if you kind of spin it the right way. Is we're doing things safely. We are doing small groups. We are outdoors, and you might capture some of those people who are just really desperate for something to do.
Yeah, I think this is part of regenerating culture and regenerating the economy. Mm-hmm. In that, I don't believe that people really want to be spectators in their heart of hearts. They want to be participants. Mm-hmm. And so singing with us on the river is way better than being at a concert. Mm-hmm. Let's do things that are immersive and participatory. Yeah. And everybody wants that. So mm-hmm. Yay, we can do this safely, and we can do it in a way that we're all connecting.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, like, I would like your help with the marketing if we're, when we're really moving into that, mm-hmm. That direction, because that's something that I have not mastered yet. Mm-hmm. And, and I think that that's going to be an essential thing for guiding. We're mm-hmm. definitely getting a lot of people interested in ecosystem restoration because of the, the networking that we've been doing within that. But as far as guiding, we haven't really started that kind of networking yet to have people come.
Totally. Oh my gosh, we are running out of time. Okay, sorry. Where are we at?
I'm running out of weather. It's starting to get a little blustery here, and there's thunder in the distance.
Let's get through this section here. Oops, I'm using the wrong keyboard. Sorry. I'm just trying to get my screen to go up so that people can see it. Okay. Okay. I wanted to take those things that we just talked about, the this fundraising with Patreon, your offerings, and the ecosystem restoration camp, and specify how they alleviate those pains that we talked about, how they meet those desires, and how they fulfill your promise to inspire awe and connection. But I think that's a little implicit, and maybe we can just kind of figure that out, or I can write something up after the fact. I want to kind of move on to the next thing.
Can I give a shameless plug?
Yeah, sure.
If people go to the Permaculture Action Network, mm-hmm. whether they go on YouTube or on Facebook, they will find a video about the Paradise Ecosystem Restoration Camp. Mm-hmm. And they will know the benefit after watching that video mm-hmm. at the Permaculture Action Network of why everybody should go to ecosystem restoration camps.
Okay. And that was the what eco restoration camp?
Paradise.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's just try to get through these last two questions really quickly. Hold on. Okay, so with how you deliver these products, how you deliver them as the facilitators of this going to fulfill that promise of inspiring awe and connection? Like, what can you do in how you hold things, how you present them, to show, and this is kind of hinting at branding, like how do you show your customers through how you're presenting and delivering these products that you are going to fulfill this promise of inspiring awe and connection?
I think that one of the things, I feel like we already talked about a lot of this, Jacki, mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. But what I can say is that we'll keep kind of a slower pace. Mm-hmm. So there's time to just be with the land. We're not like, there's not necessarily going to be programming 20, like all waking hours. There'll be space to just be mm-hmm. and just connect with the place. So that's one part of it. I'll let Jonathan talk about more.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think, we're reiterating a little bit that number one, Lauren and I really do have a tremendous amount of expertise. Mm-hmm. We've worked with humans in transition for decades. And simultaneously, our best facilitator is nature. Mm-hmm. The places that we know that we can help others know are transformative places. And so if we slow down and tune in and open ourselves up, we will feel that sense of connection when we lower our armor, mm-hmm. when we lower the busyness. And I think that what Lauren and I are able to do is to support people in that deep relaxing into the sense of place and into the sense of themselves. And, these are not high adrenaline activities, even though Lauren and I have been involved in high adrenaline activities in the past. Mm-hmm. These are, meditative, transformative, and community building activities facilitated by expert facilitators. Whether mm-hmm. we're facilitating or others are facilitating, mm-hmm. we work with, tremendous individuals. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm feeling it is, the Green River and Labyrinth Canyon is one of the great sacred deep places. And Mount Shasta in California is one of the, high points of deep sacred places. So we're really, taking people to local places. They're not outside the country, that are amazing places for transformation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not just our expertise in facilitating, it's our expertise in finding the places where the guides, we take you there safely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is really good material for your branding. And I know we've gotten the gist of this before, but specifically with your branding, showing in everything you do, how you set up your website, what imagery you use, what kinds of videos you put together. Like every single thing you do and make should have this energy of having a slow pace, being spacious, showing how expertly you hold the space for transformation. It should create a deeply relaxing atmosphere. And then you should be showing people these beautiful places that inspire awe. So you're probably already doing that with like the imagery, but just being specific about, you're definitely not going to be doing anything that's like, yeah, get out here and pump some iron and, get a workout going, or, like that's not your brand. That's not the energy that you're trying to put forward. Right. And so people will feel held. They'll feel like they can trust you to deliver that experience that they're looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, I mean, we're out of time, so I don't want to keep you any longer. The last thing I wanted to do is help you deliver or help you create an elevator pitch. But you know what? I can throw something together and send it to you, and just give you something to mull over later. I can wordcraft something. And we can work on that next time, or look at it next time. So anyway, I'm just trying to get to the end.
We created a lot of videos for the River's Path. Uh-huh. And there's even a recent one that Lauren did with Good Morning Longmont. And I've had several videographers now in the last month here at Hotlum. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be putting together videos for Hotlum now. So, I think it's just, will be interesting to see how our branding comes together in working with these different videographers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure.
So you can support us with that.
Yeah. I mean, this elevator pitch could be copy that could go on the Patreon page. It could be the introduction to your Patreon page. So I'll see if I can help you come up with some copy. Okay, well, then we are at the end of this session. Thank you for joining us. It says we have 2 viewers. Hello, viewers.
Hi, viewers.
Do our viewers have any questions you can throw at me real quick? anything you want to say? No? Okay, cool. All right, next time we're going to be talking about your market research. So if you do have anything put together, go ahead and bring it next time. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how you market and deliver this. So yeah, you're saying you need help with marketing. That's what we'll talk about next time. Great. And just to plug my Patreon, I have one. So patreon.com/regenerative revolution. There's a link below. If you want to support my work, it's as little as $3 a month, and I'll give you updates on what I'm doing, and you get to talk to me on Patreon. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.